she could have cried out for help. Since she was in the heavily populated city of Jerusalem, there is no question that she would have been heard. Dude, she's in a castle. The guy just asked all his men servants to leave. They knew what was happening. If she'd cried out, would they have come? No. They answered to... I'm sorry. So yeah, that's why we need alertness. This is grooming. Hi. So, welcome to my video, my channel. What I want to talk about is this book. So this book is by the IBLP, which is Gothard's cult. The Duggars are the most well-known name of that cult. And my mom was actually in it for pretty much her whole childhood. Her mom got born again when she was around 6 or 7, and their family joined the IBLP. Pretty much she went to the conferences. They had all the books in their house. This is the copy that my mom had while she was a kid, and this is volume 2. When she was a kid, they were 2 volumes. In '85 they released a third, and actually a year ago in 2023 they released a 4th volume. So it's interesting, and I want to talk about it. I've worked with kids pretty much my whole life. I was helping in the nursery, probably starting around 8 years old. And that's just always been a part of me, that desire to work with kids, that passion for their development and well-being and growth. And I think a lot of that comes from my own early trauma. I know a lot of it does. So since then, I have almost finished a degree in child psychology. I've worked with kids professionally since 2012. So this book came back into my awareness about a year ago when I had finally been able to convince my mom to watch some of the Shiny Happy People documentary. I don't think we even finished the first 2 episodes. It got really triggering, but it brought up a lot of good conversation, and maybe we'll go back to it, I don't know. But when we were watching it, and I think we also watched the Fundy Fridays video about the IBLP or the Duggars, I can't remember, but I know we watched a few different things together. And that was the first time, with it all laid out, that she was finally able to acknowledge that it wasn't a good program. Prior, she had been able to say well, it wasn't perfect, but it had good qualities. You know, she was very hesitant to actually see it for what it was. I'd found out about Gothard's abuse and grooming a long time ago when I was doing my own research, probably a decade ago. When the allegations were starting to come out, I had actually found out about it in my many internet searches at the time. She was not willing to hear it yet then, which is fair. But when she finally saw the videos, got the whole story, truly heard how horrifying and horrible this man's actions were, she was very upset, and she immediately got up, grabbed this book off the shelf, and was like, we're getting rid of this. I still have it. It just got put in a box to get donated. And then some months later, I had this idea, and I was like, wait, can I use this book? Do you mind if I tear it up and use it for my art? I love to make art journals out of altered books, and I think there's something kind of fun and a little bit, I don't know, rebellious about tearing this book up and using it for my art, which is very personal, but also very, in that respect, talks a lot about deconstruction and trauma, healing, recovery, personal sovereignty, the stuff that actually challenges Gothard's teachings. And it seems kind of fun to do something a little sacrilegious to him. So, but before I started to tear the book up, I was like, I need to look through this. And then I did, and I was like, this is weird. So, granted, this is only volume 2 of the 2 volumes that my mom had when she was a kid. But let's go through these characteristics. Our first one is flexibility, then alertness, availability, endurance, joyfulness, okay, hospitality, generosity. Seems good-ish. To me though, this sounds like what you want in a victim, right? Flexibility, alertness, availability, endurance, joyfulness, hospitality, generosity. That's just weird, right? Now, I wrote down the attributes that are in the other books. I don't have those books, so I can't like read them. But in our first book that came out in 1976, the first one is loyalty, responsibility, courage, determination, orderliness, initiative, and decisiveness. Now those ones do to me seem a little bit less victim focused, but I do find the fact that loyalty is the first attribute he chose to put in his book to be uncomfortable. Okay, I'm gonna move because the sun. So now let's look at some of the actual ways that they break this stuff down. So here we go. Flexibility. Sensing and adapting to the wishes of the one I serve. Conserving my time and energy to complete my priorities. Remaining free to accept the best course of action. Changing plans if unexpected conditions require it. Now we go over to alertness. Recognizing opportunities and dangers which others overlook. Acting quickly upon signals of danger. Anticipating the actions of those who seek to harm us. Visualizing the consequences of subtle dangers. Let's look at availability. Serving my family first before I consider other needs or wants. Refusing to be deterred by deceptive distractions. Rejecting ambitions that hinder us from being where we are needed. Standing by a task until it's fully completed. Especially the attributes in the book that I have, they sound so much like trauma responses. Flexibility, alertness, availability, endurance. Those 4 are the first ones. And those are trauma responses. Like, especially in a child. I don't see alertness as a healthy thing to just expect someone to be at all times. I think there's times where it's really good and useful. It's a survival skill, but as a attribute you want kids to emulate constantly, that's weird. Kids are supposed to be able to play and be goofy and get focused at things, you know? Like, you should be allowed to get sucked into a book. You don't have to be alert while you're reading. You should be calm. Your nervous system should be calm. Case in point when it comes to alertness. Let's look at the story that they decided to use for this. Yeah, you'll see what I mean. Now, I'll be honest, I was not aware that this was the one they used for this. I actually just found this out. So, Tamar character sketch. Let me let me tell you a little bit about Tamar. Tamar is David's daughter, and her story is honestly one of the hardest ones, I think, for a lot of us to be okay with. She was essayed by her brother, and it's a really horrifying story. She was definitely manipulated. Even you can tell that from the story. She was manipulated into going to him. In the story itself, she tries to convince him to at least marry her first, because she will be disgraced and cast out if he does not. He refuses. And it just becomes, after that, pretty much about the anger of one of her other brothers about the fact that this happened. And it's used in the Bible as like part of David's punishment for one of his many indiscretions or poor choices that he makes. There's a lot of that in his story where God punishes him by harming or killing his children. It's great. And I think a lot of us are aware of the Duggar situation and why Josh Duggar is in prison right now and what he did to his sisters and some of that whole situation that kind of brought down the Duggar dynasty on TLC. I'm not going to go into that. You can look it up if you don't know. A lot of people have talked about it. It was all over the news, People Magazine, Facebook. We all probably saw something connected to it. So it's interesting to me that Bill Gothard would use this story of Tamar to talk about the need for alertness and how, let me read this to you. Tamar's failure to anticipate evil intentions brought shame and death to her family. As you can imagine, this section just goes on to very clearly lay out how she could have been better and could have taken steps to prevent this from happening, and how she should have anticipated that it was coming. Wow. He does say, was Tamar responsible for Amnon's lustful desires? There is not a shred of evidence with which to charge Tamar in tempting her half-brother to his disgraceful act. His disgraceful act, not his abhorrent act, not his violent act, not his sinful act, just disgrace. Okay, that's interesting. Interesting that rape is just a disgraceful act. And then it goes on to say, as one of the king's daughters who wore the customary long-sleeved robe, Tamar's dress would have been impeccably modest. Her immediate refusal to Amon's unlawful suggestion reveals an abhorrence of such activity. Dude, how do you know what they wore back then? And then, could Tamar have anticipated and avoided this disaster by being more alert? When Absalom saw his weeping sister with ashes on her head and a torn dress, all symbols of great distress, he was without doubt as to the cause. Really? He saw this coming? Why didn't he do something? How could he have known? There's a lot of reasons to grieve that aren't being assaulted by your own brother. Okay, surely he had been aware of this potential danger. So, I thought men were protectors. When her father asked her to fulfill Amnon's unusual request, Tamar could have invited her brother Absalom along for protection. Interesting, it's on her. Not her father for telling her to do it, not Absalom for not stepping in if he knew that there was lust in his heart. What? And then it says, when Amon sent his servants out of the house and invited Tamar into his chamber, she could have left Amon's meal there and made her exit with the other men. Really? She could have? How do you know? Were you there? Oh my gosh. When Amon would not hearken unto her voice, she could have cried out for help. Since she was in the heavily populated city of Jerusalem, there is no question that she would have been heard. Dude, she's in a castle. The guy just asked all his men servants to leave. They knew what was happening. If she'd cried out, would they have come? No. They answered to... I'm sorry. So yeah, that's why we need alertness. What a great attribute. He's literally blaming Tamar for the downfall of David's family. But he also says it's the prophecy coming true. So, was it her fault or was it God's prophecy? Did God prophesy that this would happen? Or did Tamar allow it to happen? Like, come on. This is grooming. This is teaching a lot, but it's definitely not anything helpful or good for kids to get through life, in my opinion. I also find it very strange that you choose a story about incest and SA for teaching kids. That just seems kind of messed up to me. I wouldn't do that. I don't think most people that work with kids would do that either. And then I find it interesting how right after he has this whole lesson on alertness and how it was Tamar's fault, the next attribute is availability. Which, like, how was Tamar not doing that? How was, like, dude, how do you not see that these two things, what you're teaching, like, kind of contradict, kind of conflict a little bit? Like, she was being available. She was being a servant. She was trusting and obedient. Obedient of her father, trusting of her brother. Like, your brother, you should be able to, not expect that. That shouldn't be something you have to be on guard with about your own sibling. Yeah, I don't even have words. It's wild. This is such a disgusting thing. Okay, one other one that I think is very strange. So under joyfulness, this is the first photo they show that, like, these, here, let's look at the next one. It's also violent. This story about Jezebel and his view on it, and also this one, it's also, these are super focused on others and putting others first. Joyfulness is providing brightness in the lives of others regardless of outward conditions. I do find that strange. I would think joyfulness should be about you and your internal state, your internal being. And yeah, it's how you show up, it's how you view the world or engage with the world, but it's not just about showing up for other people. It's not just about providing brightness, I mean, this was very much the type of stuff I also got taught, in my very religious fundamentalist upbringing. It's a lot of stuff I've had to unlearn, and joyfulness is not something that I would have put that with. We can't be responsible for other people's feelings, other people's state of mind or well-being. I mean, parents Yeah, you're responsible for your child's well-being, but this is for children. This is what you're supposed to be teaching your kids. Do you really want your kids to feel like they're responsible for your well-being or their pastor's well-being, your pastor's sense of happiness? Your child needs to be a light. And here's an interesting one too. So the second one, the one that they pair with Jezebel's story, is joyfulness is refusing to enjoy anything which harms the person or reputation of another. It's great to have that value of, I'm not going to enjoy something that is harmful to somebody else. However, I think it's strange to put reputation in there. Why is someone else's reputation so important? I mean, I get we shouldn't intentionally go after someone's reputation unfairly, you know, we shouldn't lie, but I think it's weird because people destroy their reputations, usually. At least Gothard did. It was his actions that destroyed his reputation. And I think it's okay for me to enjoy some content that actually talks about how much of a piece of shit he was. Not that I care at all about his sense of what is right or wrong. Someone that does what he has done should have absolutely no say on what is right or wrong for anybody else. These books are very much in alignment with victim blaming and with utter selflessness. It wants perfect little victims. They teach that your value, your worth is not in you. It is not intrinsic to who you are, but it's in how you show up for other people and how you serve and sacrifice and deny yourself. And I think that's damaging. I don't think that those are bad things to value in yourself or to necessarily do when that comes from a genuine place. I think it can be beautiful, but to teach kids that that's the only way to be, that that's what goodness is, that's what love is, or what their duty as a person is, it tears a child down to never get built up. I don't know if that makes sense, but this really doesn't do anything to validate the child. And I think that's really sad, but I think it fits, you know, it fits the goals of a cult like this, and it fits the results that we've seen. I really kind of want to look at the other books now, actually flip through them, because I think it's really interesting, the stories that are chosen. You know, I was weirded out when I first looked through this book that alertness was even an attribute. And now that I've read the actual, like one of the actual stories that he has used and how he has claimed that it's important, is just utter victim blaming, which is just tragic and disgusting. It's horrible. Now, I did also write down the attributes that got added in the later volumes. So volume 3 came out in 85, which my mom was a teenager at that time, so I don't think they got that copy. They kind of outgrown it a little bit. These are the attributes. I'll just read the attributes from volume 3. I wonder if any of this is gonna be so windy. Anyway, first one is cautiousness, contentment, gratefulness, punctuality, okay, resourcefulness, thriftiness, seems a little redundant, but okay, and kindness. Cool. That one's on my list too. Yeah. So, okay, a couple of things. I find this kind of funny. The fact, resourcefulness and thriftiness, both of these I find really funny. that they're like right next to each other, which to me, these things are very much like thriftiness. That's part of being resourceful, in my opinion. But okay. I think this speaks a lot to the poverty that most of the people who join the IBLP end up being in, especially quiverful families. Yeah, contentment, I think, also really plays into the poverty. Gratefulness also plays into the poverty thing. I think punctuality also is really telling, because you have a family with, I mean, my family has 4 kids. I'm the oldest of 4. And punctuality is a challenge for pretty much every large family. But you add in an additional like 10, 12 kids, punctuality is like impossible. And I find it hilarious. Like, you know, this man who was not married, does not have children, was just annoyed that people were showing up late to his conferences. Oh my gosh. And then, yeah, gratefulness and contentment. Again, kind of redundant there, sir. Cautiousness is interesting. I'm curious to know where he took that. And then kindness. Yeah, that one's good. That one's great. Let's do that one. Also, again, I'm curious about the stories he chose, but like fruit of the spirit, that's a good one. Let's all be kind. I love that. And then, so the one that just came out last year, which is wild to me, but I think they trying to cover their butts a little bit after Shiny Happy People came out, maybe, and trying to rebrand by going retro and reigniting a series that we haven't published anything from in 40 years. So those attributes, another 7 for us, because that's the number of completion. You gotta have 7. Definitely would be so sinful to only have 6. Anyway, so first one, persuasiveness. I'm sure he's not talking about children persuading their parents, but sincerity, boldness, okay, virtue, kind of vague, but okay, truthfulness, I would just say honesty, but okay, forgiveness, surprised that one wasn't earlier, and obedience. So it's basically, to me, with those last 7 attributes, sounds like they're buckling down and wanting people to forgive them and continue to obey. Yeah. Kids deserve better. It's also just so weird when I look at this from any child development side of this. A lot of these, yeah, they're things you learn. Some of them are useful, but most of them are not what I would call like developmentally useful, especially in the way he teaches them. Anyway, I did make a list of things that I think are good attributes for kids to learn. And we got curiosity, patience, kindness, honesty, courage, respect, resourcefulness, cleverness, creativity, gentleness, playfulness, mindfulness. I don't know. Those are some things I think are useful and would make the world a better place. You know, create kids that are good people. Not that kids aren't already good people, but I'd love to know what you think are actually like good attributes that would help us move the world forward and bring healing. I think there's a lot of really incredible qualities that we miss and we don't get taught, you know, like conflict resolution and collaboration and self-love, self-forgiveness, those kinds of things. How to hold something lightly and not cling, how to grieve, how to trust yourself, how to develop your intuition. You know, I think those things are good, but I don't think Gothard's goal was ever to raise kids that are passionate. I think he just wanted obedience and submission, people that he can control and threaten, people that are susceptible and manipulatable through fear. There's probably a lot more in this book that's really appalling, but I'm excited to tear it up and start making something cool out of it. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. I'm gonna try to be making more videos. I post about my art, and I'm hoping to post a lot more about my thoughts, my deconstruction story and experience, and yeah, life too. It's beautiful. The sun is now shining on me. I was not able to successfully stay out of its light. Comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please be kind. Like, subscribe, whatever you feel like doing. I'm just glad you're here, and yeah, keep going. Enjoy your day. Bye.